webinar. My goodness. Thank you for everyone for your patience. It looks like now we're in the right room. Does anyone mind popping into the Q&A and telling me whether or not this is working? Or the chat. We can hear you now. Amazing. Thank you. Perfect. Well, then we're just going to consider the last 11 minutes just a really wonderful dress rehearsal. Let me just make sure Dave followed me into the correct room. Live events. This is definitely the right group of people to be doing this with, because I'm sure everybody has had this moment. Thank you all for your patience. Bear with me for just a moment while I make sure Dave transitions from backstage onto the stage.
Webinar. Okay. All right, testing. 1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear me now?
I think we made it. I think we have officially stepped into the light from backstage. All right, getting some
yes.
Very
All
right.
Good.
Amazing. All right, great. We're just going to take this from
the top.
I
was doing a great job. I'll just tell you, it was an amazing presentation I was giving. So I'll probably only screw it up from here.
No, it's all up from here. That's it. It's going to be great from here. Okay, really, again, I really appreciate everybody's patience. And all right, I'm going to be super quick since no one really cares about what I'm going to say. So anyway, hello, everyone. I'm Casey Thomas. I'm the Public Relations Specialist for AudienceView. And thankfully, I also have a background in performing because live events, we roll with it. I have the distinct pleasure today of officially welcoming Dave Wakeman to the first of our Industry Experts series. For those of you that have not had the pleasure of meeting Dave, he is an advisor and consultant for businesses around the world. His work focuses on creating and capturing profitable business opportunities. His writing has been translated into 6 languages and has spoken to audiences in Australia, Europe, Asia, and across the United States. And his weekly strategy newsletter, The Business of Value, is read and trusted by executives and leaders in over 50 countries. The BBC has referred to Dave as the king of tickets, and his podcast, The Business of Fun, is the top podcast for people in the live ticketing business. Talking Tickets, his newsletter reaches readers in sports, arts, and entertainment on every continent, with the exception of Antarctica. So if anyone's joining us from Antarctica, let us know so we can just say that's all 7 continents. And without further ado, I'm going to put myself on mute. Just a quick reminder that this is being recorded for those folks who were not able to join us live. And you don't need to wait until the end of the presentation to ask questions. Please just feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and I will keep an eye on that and make sure everything gets answered. All right, Dave, I'm going to mute myself. Take it away.
All right. Well, first, I want to thank AudienceView for inviting me to kick off this series of webinars about issues that will be important to people selling tickets. So today we're going to start with talking about the basics of brand management for ticket sellers. Like Casey said, if you have a question, don't hold it till the end. Go ahead and type it into the Q&A. I have a nice little box at the top of the screen that lets me know when questions are coming in. So I'm going to try to answer them throughout. I don't want you to wait. I'm going to go through this first part fast since I hadn't gone through it in such detail earlier. Actually, I had not, but that's fine. It'll work totally. Today, we are going to cover some important topics that I think will be helpful to you. We're going to start out with a brand. What is a brand? Why does it matter? Definitions of branding, and brand management, because they are different. We're going to move on. We're going to hit the 3 key questions that all good brand managers know to ask and answer. We're going to talk about brand codes and why tickets, sports teams, arts organizations, production companies, they all need to think of these. And it's not just for companies like Tesla or Tiffany. We are going to talk about tactics, the 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, and why purpose is not one of them, and how they help you execute your brand strategy. And then I'm going to teach you the most important brand lesson, which is something that I teach my executive MBA students after we get through the entire class. I'm going to give it to you for free, though. You don't have to go back to college and get an MBA to learn the most important brand management lesson that you are going to learn. Who am I? Casey did a great job. I'm going to go ahead and give you the short blowhard version of me. Like Casey said, the BBC called me the king of tickets. I am never, ever running from that. I am going to embrace that forever, no matter what I do. I have been the host of the Business of Fun. It just celebrated its 5-year anniversary. It's the #1 podcast in the world for people who work in live entertainment and ticket sales. The Talking Tickets newsletter comes out every Friday, which is tomorrow. You can get it at talkingtickets.substack.com. It's read on every continent except for Antarctica. I just don't know if there's any event spaces in Antarctica. It's a big, with global warming, maybe there will be soon. I have been featured and written about in all these publications, ESPN, the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, blah, blah, blah. To get past that, that's because I've already said that before and I've heard it enough, and I'm sure you have as well. Why does this slide jam up? Okay, so let's begin with a very important idea, which is, what is a brand? Everyone, and I can't emphasize this enough, everyone needs to have a definition of brand for your organization. And I start with what is a brand because I want you to understand that a lot of times what I see is a challenge inside organizations, that everybody has a different definition of what they mean when they say brand or branding. It matters because a lot of people are in sports and arts. If we're reading from different scripts, or if we're not using the same playbook, it's very hard to make decisions that are going to be consistent with what you hope to achieve. If you don't have a strategy that's going to lead you to success, any road will take you there. And the starting point of that is often having a clearly defined definition of brand that everybody can use in an organization. I'll give you some definitions from some of my close friends and colleagues. I'll start out with one I found pretty interesting, and mainly because it comes from my friend Elon Musk, and he's Tesla, SpaceX, and bought Twitter. His definition is a brand is just a perception, and perception will match reality over time, which is kind of ironic considering that all of the proclamations he makes and some of the actions he takes are completely diametrically opposed to each other. So I thought that one was pretty fun, and I enjoyed that one a lot. Seth Godin, the famous marketing thought leader, says a brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. That's a little clunky, a little big for me, but he's one of the most widely read marketers, so I figured I would include that one in there. I do like Warren Buffett's definition, who I don't know where he falls on the list of richest people now, but he's a fairly rich man. And he says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about that, you'll do things differently. And that was pretty good for me. And then this one from Lisa Gansky, who's an entrepreneur, writer, and speaker. She said a brand is a voice and a product is a souvenir. Again, there's, as you see, there's different definitions for different people. It's not so much what the definition is that it helps you create a framework for your own decision making, and then everybody can operate from the same playbook. Now, my definition is, I feel that a brand is the accumulation of all the interactions you have with your market, positive and negative, over time, with a big caveat that The good stuff adds up really, really slowly, but the bad stuff can wipe out your brand in a second, right? It's kind of like close to what Warren Buffett was saying. And so as we work through today's session, I want you to think of your own, right? I may put you on the spot and even ask people to put theirs in the chat box as we go forward, or you can just go ahead in there and I might read out some of my favorites as we get to the end. I'm not going to promise you that because I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, but I do want you to think of what a brand is and create your own definition, because a lot of times it's never thought out and it's never truly formed, and that can be a challenge for people. So I promised you, before we move on to the meat of this, I promised you to talk about brand at 3 levels. So before we get any further along, I want you to know there's a big difference between these 3 terms that I'm probably going to use a great deal today. Number 1 is brand. The brand is what people see. It's that kind of perception that people have. It's the embodiment of all of these interactions, like I said, that good and bad that people have with you in the market. Branding is the process of creating the brand. And brand management is the thing you do to help associate your brand with the things you want it to be seen as. So brand is the actual, let's say, brand of Apple, right? The brand of Manchester United, the brand of the Sydney Opera House. Branding is the process of creating that. And then brand management are the tools and the resources and framework you create to help you deliver on that. So let's start out by answering the question, what are the 3, or let's start out with the idea of what are the 3 questions that you have to answer to be a good brand manager? And they're pretty simple. They're straight ahead. And if you only take these 3 questions away from this, you will have done a good job. And I learned these from my brand management professor many years ago, and it is, who is your target? What is our position? And what brand codes will we use? And we're going to cover all 3 of these in detail. So I'm going to start with targeting. But before I go on, does anybody have any questions so far? Please just drop them in the chat box or in the Q&A. There's a Q&A section and a chat box. I can't necessarily see the chat, so put them in the Q&A. So we're going to begin by talking about targeting. And targeting is really like a game of darts. It's like shooting arrows. It's any one of those games is of skill. And targeting is about picking the right destination for your efforts, right? It begins with, every time I touch that, all right, it begins with research, right? And research is important because we need to know what our market values. One of the frustrating things that I see when I talk about research with people, actually there's a whole list of them that I'm going to get to in a second, but one of the most important ones is, number 1, people talk about, I know exactly what the market wants. I know exactly what people want. You don't, right? And there's a reason why. As soon as you start working in a venue, as soon as you start working for a team, as soon as you start working on technology, as soon as you start working on your brand, you're too close to it. You can't understand what it is. You don't know. But another frustrating thing about research that I want to tell you about and talk about at the start here is that people think that they just want to focus on the customers they already have, and they never go outside of to their non-customers, and it limits their ability to have a tremendous impact and a tremendous opportunity to grow their business, because most of the time people forget or they miss opportunities because they are only talking to people who they already know love them, and not figuring out what other people want that don't already love them. So the first thing is, we need to know the difference between primary and secondary research. Primary research is stuff you do on your own, right? Focus groups, conversations, surveys, commissioned research projects that touch the whole market. Some of these things are easy to do, some of them are expensive, but they're all things that you do yourself. Secondary, though, is great, and this is my friend, because secondary stuff is stuff other people have done, right? You can use, I now use Bing, because Bing has ChatGPT incorporated with it, and I thought that was kind of fun. And now I don't know how to get it off my computer, so I just stuck with it. But you can use Google, and you can look up research to see what people are asking, have been asking about or what they've been doing. I read the morning paper, the Wall Street Journal, most of the time, and I find numbers and references to research that I can go and use. The same thing applies to you, right? If there's a question or a hypothesis that you're trying to create and generate and think about, the first place I would start would be like doing a web search to figure out if somebody's already done research on that topic and using that to your advantage. So that's primary versus secondary. The second part is active versus reactive. And active is you creating a hypothesis, understanding what you're trying to look for in the market, and creating some sort of research vehicle that will help you understand your customers or your market better. Reactive is this idea of big data, where the data will tell me everything. I don't necessarily, I come across a lot of times as being like anti-data or more research-based. What it is I don't think that it's one or the other. I think it's a little bit of a combination of both. You go to the data to get an understanding of what your audience is doing or what like your current audience is doing. You develop a hypothesis, and then you become active and you go out and figure out if that's relevant or not, right? So you need both. But unfortunately, too often we hear data, and it's all reactive because it's not necessarily driven by you and your active search for what you're looking for in the market. So what I try to teach people as a way to start this targeting process is a concept that's called backward market research. And I should have put this in the chat box, but if you Google my name, ALSD and backward market research, you will find an article I wrote for the ALSD, I think about a year and a half ago, about backward market research. And it's simple, right? The way I teach people to do it is simple. It's a little more complex. The idea first bubbled up in the 80s at Harvard Business School. But you start with a question, right? You create a hypothesis of what you're trying to figure out or what you want to know about your market, right? You figure out how. Number two, you figure out how those answers are going to show up. Is it going to be something that's long form, multiple choice? Is there more than one right answer potentially? Figure out what the answers are going to look like. And then you design a survey around that. It's those three things. That's backward market research. And that'll help you understand the market better. When you understand the market better, you're able to create a segmentation of the map. And before we go on too far talking about segmentation, I want to make one huge caveat, because most of the time when we talk about segmentation, we talk about demographic data. And demographics is great because it's easy. And because it's easy, it's usually worthless, right? Because what you're saying is that, because, let's see, what am I? My neighbor Josh and I. Okay, so Josh is 2 years older than me. We live about 100, not even 100 feet apart. We live about 10 feet apart. We both drink tequila. We both grill meat. We both do a lot of things. Josh, we both even own business. But we have different things. He kiteboards. I would never ever kiteboard. I go to London to see football all the time. He doesn't do that. Demographics, though, would tell you that we are exactly the same. More importantly, and what I want you to try to think about and look at is behavioral demographic behavior. So you want to look at what are those things that are the same, right? Again, go back to Josh. We both do appreciate soccer. We both do drink tequila. We both do own our own businesses, right? Look for things that are similar. Look for the behaviors that are going to drive it. So what are people doing to entertain themselves, right? How are people entertaining business clients? Is money the most important thing, right? Ask the demographic questions, but be prepared to know that, like, just because somebody makes over $100,000 a year, it doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to like choral music, right? Just liking the symphony on Facebook does not necessarily mean that I'm going to be a good liking the symphony on Facebook. Having an income of over $100,000, living in a certain zip code doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be the right target market. Look for the behaviors. The behaviors are going to open more doors for you than the demographics themselves. Demographics might be important, but look for the behaviors. That's the key thing. That's targeting. Does anybody have any questions right now? I don't see anything. So let's go ahead and move on to positioning. And positioning is your value proposition. Think about it like, why me versus all the other alternatives in the world? Why are they picking me? To begin with, the position is all about you, right? The most important piece in the puzzle of positioning is you, right? You have to know why you're different, right? One of the things that I hate is when people are always like selling their products and services around the same one or two common ideas. They're the common attributes, because you're telling me like, hey, look, there's nothing else that's unique about you, right? So think about you. Begin with you. Why are you important? Why would people pick you over all the alternatives, right? And so think about these things. Do you know who the alternatives are, right, in your market? And the truth of it is like you think you do and you don't, right? Because most of the time you take this very narrow view of alternatives. And I'm not just saying you, it's most people, because most of the time we make assumptions, right? I'm as guilty of this as anybody, right? So we need to understand who the alternatives are. A practice that I've started doing is when I go to different cities to work with clients is I'll take walks around the venues. And it's not uncommon for me to find 50, 60, 75, 100 different alternatives for entertainment or hanging out or whatever, besides the game, besides the concert, besides the performance. And a lot of times we don't know. And in a lot of cases, the biggest alternative we face is going home and doing nothing. Netflix. It could be working late, right? It could be going to the gym. All these things are alternatives that we don't necessarily, and this is why I say we all do it, is because these are sometimes alternatives that we don't pay attention to. So the first two steps is like, understand why people should pick you, and then understanding what they're picking instead, so you can position around you and the competition. Because the best positioning statements do a little bit of both. They talk about you, but they also highlight how great you are versus the competition, right? Why would you want to sit at home on the couch and watch Netflix when you can see a world-class symphony performance that's going to move you and create this just sense of living, right? Why would you want to go to have beer at this Irish bar when you can go to the game and watch the game in person and have beers at their bar, right? So it's about both of you, right? And the way I teach people to think about positions is you want to do it using this old marketing idea called the 3 C's. And what that means is, what does the customer want that your company can deliver better than the competition? So customer, company, competition. That is a good positioning idea. You want to understand what people want that you can give them that's better than the competition, because you don't want to just give them the same thing, because then you become a commodity. Does that add up to everybody so far? Let me know if you have any questions in the chat box here, because I'm trying to speed up since we got a little late start because of technical difficulties. So I'm speeding through. So I want to move on to the third question in our trifecta of important questions, which is the brand codes. And what are brand codes? Brand codes are sounds, photos, ideas, taglines, jingles, things that represent the brand to people in the market. In a second, I'll ask you, and you can go ahead and start about this now. Put down some of the things that you consider brand codes, or some of the things that matter to you. And I'm going to show you in a moment a few of mine. But why do they matter? And this is important. It's because they're a shortcut for people, right? The brand codes, they help signify to the people you're trying to reach, this is who we are. This is what we mean to you. Don't forget that we're here, right? It's totally symbolic, right? But these symbols have importance, because when you see certain things, you automatically think of certain brands, right? Again, I'm going to show you a couple that I really like in a moment. But how do you use them? And the truth is that you use them constantly, all the time, right? Your logo should be on everything that you put out there, right? If you have a color that's associated with you, it should be everywhere. Again, the way that I learned it is you codify everything and you can't use the codes too much. When you think that you've used a sound, a color, a picture, a shape, a logo too often, you're wrong. Do it some more. So let me show you some of my favorite ones that symbolize the power of brand codes. In the chat box here or in the Q&A, who knows what this is? Give everybody a second. So I was watching Robert Wright too. He's like, put this into the section there. Does everybody know what that is? What I've just put up there? I'm hoping so. What about this one? Right? The first one was Tiffany. This is Coca-Cola, right? And the brief, if you've never been to the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, the brief is there, and they talk about a bottle so distinct that you could tell what it was if it was broken. And I looked for a picture of a broken Coke bottle that didn't have some kind of giveaway on it. It wasn't there, but you could still tell it's a Coke bottle. I mean, it's unbelievable. What about this? This is the design of the Sydney Opera House is no doubt a brand code. And this one is my favorite. The tongue from the Rolling Stones, because I've seen this thing everywhere. I've seen it all over the world. It's amazing. Now, my question to all of you then is, do you think about the brand codes, right? Because unfortunately, what I find is that a lot of people don't necessarily think about the importance of it. These are symbols, right? And they are symbolic. They right away, when you saw that blue, the Tiffany blue, I'm expecting that everybody, and I can only see Casey, so Casey's gonna probably nod her head. She knew exactly what it was, right? And she was like, "Going, I would like something from Tiffany right now." And the Coke bottle, the same thing. And maybe the Rolling Stones would be the most esoteric of the four, but the Sydney Opera House was always like, to me, that symbolizes Australia. The same thing should be in play for your organization, right? I heard somebody recently talk about the Hamilton stage set and how it could only be one place, and how that had become a brand code. That's it. When I'm in Boston, the Green Monster, you can only be one place in the world. It's the most physical, visual, impressive representation of baseball to me, right? When you go to London, and you go to Wembley Stadium, those arches as you walk up from the train station, again, those are like, you can only be one place. Those are all. And I didn't have the ability, or couldn't figure out how to do the audio here, but don't discount sounds. Remember the Netflix knock, right? Those are things, the jingles that you hear, right? All of those things matter. Figure out what they are for your organization, 2, 3, 4 of them, and use them on everything. Does anybody have any questions? Or has this make sense to everybody so far? Or am I a complete numpty? Don't answer that last question. I already know the answer is yes, it's fine. All right, so here we go. We're going to talk about tactics now. I want to re-emphasize this idea, but strategy first, right? Always strategy before tactics. If you don't know where you're going, what is Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And unfortunately, that's where I find too many organizations, right? They feel like they're going to get to the strategy after everything else is done, right? Oh, we got to get this season launched, right? We got to get our collateral together so that we can sell the tickets to the show. We'll get to all of this stuff later. We'll figure out the pricing after we put together the programs and everything else. All of that's putting the cart before the horse, right? Strategy comes first. Once you have a strategy, that leads you, and those questions again are, who are we targeting? What's our position? What brand codes are we going to use to express that? You get to the 4 Ps. And I know that there's a lot of talk about, if you follow any kind of marketing or you listen to any of this stuff going on, oh, there's 7 Ps now, or there's 6 S's, or there's all kinds of, it's all garbage. Again, use this lesson that I teach the brand strategy executive MBA students. There's nothing wrong with the 4 Ps. It's one of the most successful and sustained and simple to use frameworks in all of business. And the 4 Ps are product, price, place, and promotion. There is a graphic here. Okay, boom. They're supposed to come in. This is BS stuff. But product, right? The product is I teach people about product at 3 levels, right? There's the actual product, which is the ticket or the event that you're selling people. There is the core value. That's what people get, right? So it could be a business relationship. It could be a night with their family. It could be a special treat for the child for getting good grades in school, whatever it is. And then there's the augmented product, and that's everything that goes around the product. That's the product, right? If you know who your target is and you know why they're picking you, it makes creation of the product better, easier, right? Because people are buying different things. The price, that somehow I've become this person that people turn to for pricing it all the time. The biggest and most important thing that you need to know about price is that there's a formula that I created is price equals value. If people don't value what you're offering, no price will get them to buy it. This is why discounts are for dummies. Discounts will destroy your brand, and discounts are a really poor way to stimulate demand. Because if nobody cares about what you're offering, then it doesn't matter if you give it to them. They won't take it. Price is an important part of your execution of your brand strategy, because price is, again, a symbol. A premium price can symbol one thing, the same as a low price, so that you make things accessible, can signal something entirely different. And it's totally cool to have different prices within the same performance, the same organization. The challenge with pricing is that there's no one right price. Price is kind of fluid, right? There's probably a right price right now, but there's no 100% always correct price. So the thing is price is both art and science. What you want to do is you don't want to have too many prices. You want to understand that price is really a reflection of value, and that price is symbolic, right? Never forget the symbols, because that's really the challenge that you're always doing, is managing the perception of value around your products, your events, your tickets. So place, that's how you distribute, right? And there is lots of conversations about how is the best way to distribute tickets, right? There's some people who just want limited distribution. There's some people who want just wide open distribution. Where do I fall down on this? I fall down on the point of, like, you have to make the decision that's best for your organization. If anybody's telling you that the only way to do it is wide open distribution, what do they want from you, right? And if somebody's telling you that they only should have distribution that's limited and that you can control, again, what's their interest? My interest is with you, right? And I want you to make the best decision for your organization. It could be sometimes limit the distribution works perfectly. It could be other situations where wide open distribution matters, right? But it needs to be your decision, and that's place, right? So think about distribution like what works for me, and any absolute statement is probably wrong, and somebody's probably trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So remember that. And then, promotion. We talk about promotion, right? Which promotions is advertising, right? It's how do you get the word out about what you're doing, right? And fortunately, there's tons and tons of different ways that you can promote your brand, your tickets, your events, your stadium, your building, your subscriptions, right? The one thing, so actually there's a couple things. First, there's no absolutely right or wrong way to do promotion. Just like with distribution, it needs to work for you. This is why you need to understand what your strategy is before you start doing the tactics, because knowing who you're targeting is going to change how you're going to reach these people, right? one of the famous ones I say is like, if you ever see me like start posting stuff on Pinterest for my business, you'll know something's wrong, because that's not where my audience is. It's the same for everybody, right? It's like you need to understand exactly who you're targeting so that you can make the best promotion decision for yourself, right? You can hit people where they're likely to see you. The second thing about promotions is, besides needing to have that targeting, is that combining media really, really matters. And again, a formula that I've shared a lot now is that A plus B is better than 2A or 2B. And what does that mean? That means that, like, if I'm going to do, let's say, a webinar and combine that with my podcast and my newsletter, I'm likely to get a better impact and reach a bigger audience and create more momentum for my business than if I just did one of those things and I doubled down. Let's say if I only did webinars, right? Or if I only did the newsletter, or if I only did the podcast. In your situation, it might be combining print advertising with some form of digital, maybe Facebook or Twitter advertising, right? It's probably more effective than just focusing on digital distribution or digital promotion channels on Facebook or Twitter, or just doing the print things. Combining the two is always much better. So one final thing there. All right, and I've done pretty well on time here, I believe, which is great. One last thing. I promised you at the end I would teach you the most important lesson of brand management that anybody can teach you, right? This is what any students, the 300 or so that come to my class each year or each semester learn. This is what they get, right? All of this is what we pay for, and it's simple. I wrote this myself too, by the way. I used the trackpad. This is great. I figured you deserved at least one hand-drawn visual. It's consistency, right? The most important thing is consistency. Consistency in a couple ways. All right. First of all, I want you to think about this idea called the long and short. And what it is like, it means you don't just focus on your brand. You also, which is the long, you also focus on your short-term thing. It's not either or, it's both. And there is tools out there that you can use that you can put in your specific industry, your market, the age of your venue or performance to get a formula. In most cases, I think in tickets and live entertainment, somewhere around 50% brand building, 50% sales activation is about the right mix. The problem for most people is that they're not investing at all in their brand. If I had to put a number on where people are spending most of their money, it would be probably 90-95% sales activation. And that becomes a challenge because if your brand is not supported, it becomes easier and easier for people to ignore the sales activations. Those sales activations become less and less impressive over time. And that leads to things like discounting. It makes you change maybe the scope and ambition of your organization and the subscriptions and the productions you're putting on. It has a lot of bad knock-on effects. So even if you can only get 10 or 15, 20% dedicated to brand building, you'll begin to see it pay off because you'll be less likely to have to invest in discounting, which are dumb, right? Because they don't, again, no value, nobody buys no matter what, right? It will create a preference. It will give people a sense of value that you may not have had before, right? So think about long and short and figure out how you can dedicate even a little bit of money and to start to your brand, because over time you'll begin to see it becomes easier to sell those tickets. Price consciousness goes out the door. There's a greater perception. There's a feeling of momentum around your organization, but it's hard because it's tough to measure. People have underinvested in their brand for so long, and they don't necessarily understand what it means. So try to focus on both. Consistency over time, right? This stuff doesn't happen immediately, right? You need to understand that brand management is not a 1 month thing. Like, oh, we're going to brand manage this month and it's going to be perfect when we're done. No, brand management is something you have to think about and develop over years and years and years. This is again one of the reasons that it's under invested in, because it doesn't get you the short-term results, right? You're not able, if you're in an American sports team, to move on in 2 years and get the new job if you're investing in brand, because the thing is like in 2 years you might not have the results that you need. By the third year you definitely will, but 2 years in, it's going to take you time to see the benefits of managing your brand effectively. And the big thing is because happens all the time, is people are obsessed with the shiny and new thing. And with brands, those images, those codes, when do you think the last time that Tiffany played with the Tiffany blue bag, right? They haven't, they don't. What they did do though, is they played with it recently for a new campaign to introduce the Tiffany brand to a new audience. And because of how important and how meaningful that blue bag was to people were up in arms when they put yellow where the blue should have been, and people lost their mind. But what it did was it made it fresh, not new, but fresh. And so that's one thing that you have to think about, is like, once you've established those codes, once you've established what sticks in people's mind about your brand, it's like you can keep them fresh, but you don't necessarily want to just play with them indiscriminately, right? I have a Red Sox t-shirt that I don't have here now, that has green on it. You still know it's the Red Sox. That's fresh, not new. And that's important, because that's a way to keep keep your brand fresh and new, so that it doesn't become stale and dated. Because over time, if you're consistent, you focus on both long and short, you keep delivering on it, your brand will have a tendency to feel a little old, a little dusty, right? Most of us won't have that problem, because we have to begin delivering on our brand now, and we haven't been investing in it. But the thing is, you want to keep it fresh, so it never feels like your mom's brand. You want it to always feel like it's current and new and a part of the firmament. But you do that by freshening the brand, not making it new. So takeaways. Let me see here if I have any questions. No questions so far. That's okay.
I'm going to hop off mute because I think I moved April's question to the wrong spot, but we did have one come in from April. Where do you see avenues for brand support? Social media? Anywhere else?
Okay, so brand support. I probably, April, if you can type into the thing what exactly you mean by brand support, I'll answer that a little bit better after I do the takeaways, just because I want to make sure I answer it the right way, because I'm not sure if I understand exactly what brand support means. All right, so then let's talk about our takeaways. This is where I should have had the slide, the animation. I screwed it up, because then I could go, oh. So the definition of a brand, right? Do you have your definition of a brand? What did you write down at the start? Remember, mine is the accumulation of all the interactions you have with your market, good or bad, over time. But always remember the important caveat that the good stuff adds up super, super slowly. And just like my background here, the bad stuff can wipe you out in a second, right? Like nothing, like a sandcastle going away in the waves. Remember the 3 key questions of branding, which is, who is our target? What's our position? What brand codes are we going to use? Remember the brand codes. The brand codes are the symbols, right? Sounds, colors, shapes, images. Don't take those for granted. Figure out what they are. I try to get people to come up with 4 of them at a minimum, right? Even I do. I have blue everything, right? Blue is, and I have a logo, right? Your logo is always one of them. Understand what they are and use them everywhere. You can't use these things too much. The 4 Ps, right? Product, price, place, and promotion. If people try to come with their 5, 6, 7, 8 Ps or S's and T's and whatever, they're all BS, right? Purpose ain't one of them. It's a great framework because it tells you, like, what kind of product am I offering? Where am I promoting it? What's my distribution look like? And how much am I charging people? It's a framework. It's not handcuffs. It'll help you make sure that you don't miss something that is very important. And then finally, it's consistency. You got to be consistent. The key to brand management is consistency. If you're changing everything every 3 months, it ain't going to work. If you're changing everything every 6 months, it ain't going to work. the power of your brand builds up over time. You got to be consistent. Now, that is the main part of the thing. Let me see if I got this question now from April. You mentioned that most companies don't spend on brand support, just sales. Where do you recommend money on brand support should be spent? That is a great question. And the answer is that I don't know, because you have to do your research. This is one of the reasons that doing your research is so powerful, because you have to understand why people, what people value, who they are, what kind of media or where can you reach them. And then you'll do your brand support, to use your term, in that way, right? It could be, newspapers still work for some people, right? It could be TV advertising because it reaches a huge market. It's likely a combination of things. The big thing is that when you're talking about brand support and building on your brand, focus on those emotional things. Emotion is what makes brands, right? Meaning makes brands. It shouldn't be tactical. It should be focused on, like, not so much the sales and the current thing. It should be about the power of the event, right? Think about a symbol like, again, I'll use Fenway Park just because it's great. Think about all the pictures and things that it evokes. Think about, a great symphony, right? And those first few notes of music, those things those are the emotional things. They evoke a reaction. That's what branding does. So where you put it, it just depends on your research and your target market. How you do it is going to really matter, because that's the most important thing you'll learn from your research. Hopefully that is helpful. All right, so I don't think I told Casey this, but I have 2 freebies for you. 2 freebies. All right. Oh, let me see. Wrong button here. It would not be anything without me messing up somehow on the tech. So it's great. A few gifts for me. One thing I've done is I've teamed up with AudienceView here today to launch this thing, and I'm going to offer everybody on this call free 90 days of email coaching. All you got to do is email me, dave@davewakeman.com. I will set you up. We will get you through the summer. We will set a goal, and I will coach you through this thing, right? Perfectly free, nothing involved. Just as a way to thank you for being here, a little added bonus. I do it regularly, so please. And then if anybody wants, if this hits for somebody and they have questions, a free 20-minute diagnostic call, and we'll go through and we can answer those questions for you, like who is your target, what's your position, and what are the brand codes, so like you can actually put this stuff to work, right? Both of them are free. Email me, dave@davewakeman.com. I will hook you up, right? Those are my gift to you. Call it Christmas in June or whatever. They're for me. Also, stay in touch with me, right? And here's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, visit my website. It's davewakeman.com. Tons of great stuff there. There's a blog. There's actually a store there now. It's great. Get the Talking Tickets newsletter. That's talkingtickets.substack.com. Check out the Business of Fun podcast. I'm going to play with the format a little bit. I'm going to do some different stuff there. And then you can email me. It's dave@davewakeman.com. And that you'll get me. No, those are my people. It's Dave. And that's it for me. If you have a question, drop it in there, because I have about 30 seconds or so before Casey's going to shut me off.
Well, I'm just going to hop off mute while people are typing any last minute questions. So thank you again, Dave. This was really great. Thank you for giving us your time and those freebies. That was a surprise. I hope people take advantage of that. And thank you to everyone for sticking with us during our technical difficulty at the beginning. I really appreciate that. And if you're we'll be following up with that information that Dave put on your screen. And yeah, definitely take advantage of that call and the email coaching. I think everyone could benefit from that.
What more could you want? Free.
All right. Well, it looks like some people are starting to drop. So Dave, thank you again. And
thank you for having me.
We hope to see you again soon. Yes. All right. Bye, everybody.